a skeleton agenda, and we have made some changes and circulated those. And they have some new features that maybe we'll talk about as we go. So among those new features, one of the things that we wanted to talk about before we start, you have to do this at the beginning for it to make any sense, is just to develop a procedure for checking in with everybody that all of their accessibility requirements are met so that they're ready to engage in the meeting. So I have tried setting up Zoom for myself so I can see my screen better than the screen in front of me. So I made my personal accommodations, which so far so good. Daniel, is there anything you need? Are you good for the meeting?
Good, thank you.
And
Drew,
you're good. Tina?
I'm good.
Alex and Jessica, are you?
We're good.
Are you?
And just a friendly reminder that we'll need anything that's put on screen described.
Yeah, but other than that, it's all good.
Okay, so do you have, are you able, the documents that were sent to you by email?
Yes, we can access those.
We can access those, but like when we're going through something, if you're like saying on this slide or, something to that effect, we would just need the slide described.
Or if we're taking notes live, then that would need to be.
I guess.
Okay, so can I please tell us, if we need to do something differently.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for asking. I really appreciate you doing this at the beginning of the meeting. That's very helpful.
So just for that, I guess you can tell from the Zoom who is here to some extent. So Daniel's here because he's on Zoom. Steph is here. Drew is here. Tina is here, and Alex and Robin Angus and Robin are here. So that's who's in the room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And please make notes too, because if we kind of develop a little procedure for how to do this and we generalize it, then we'll learn as we go. So
Steph is still here as well?
Yeah, she mentioned Steph.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So going around. So Angus, is there anything we can do to help you? You're good? Okay. And let us know if you need us to do anything differently. And Robin?
I got a good chair and I'm in a good spot.
That's right. You're not too hot. I don't know. You've got your coat on. I'm
okay.
Roasting, but the heat is another thing.
Do you want me to open this window?
Okay. I'm just saying, we could discover, a lot of different things about air as well as communication. So I am really happy with this little experiment. So we're ready to go. Approval of the agenda. So can we make a recommendation that we approve the agenda? Why does this say November 20th? Today is November 29th. So today's agenda, we're going to go forward with it. No additions. Good. We don't have to vote on this.
It's sometimes fun for committees to practice. They don't get a lot of chances, but we could do by unanimous consent as well.
All right. I don't see any wishes to add. Adoption of the minutes. So this is our last meeting, which was October 30th that we had on Zoom, and those minutes have been circulated. So any corrections or comments? Good. Shall we adopt those minutes? Steph is trying to share a screen. Is there anything?
I'm just putting them on the screen for people to look at briefly.
Okay, so we will come back to some of these items that are going to appear today as actions from those minutes. So we will revisit the highlights as we go. Okay, so we're going to recommend that we adopt those minutes. Yes. All right, very good. So we have done number 1, we have done number 2, and then we have no public comments.
No public comments.
So we go on to number 4, which we've actually done already.
Okay.
And even though it seems like we should start with adopting the agenda, I don't know if Robert's rules were written before accessibility was an issue.
Great point.
So,
Good point.
so I don't, maybe Steph, you
Sure,
can
we'll put-
check if we can do this as a preliminary,
There's something, we can.
but,
The software doesn't let me. I've tried to do like welcome introductions and it's very strict, but we'll make it work.
anyway, that's the modern
Okay.
amendment to Robert's rules.
Okay.
And maybe it isn't an agenda item, maybe it's just some other thing at the front about, like where you put the notice. Anyway, you can figure out how to make that happen at the beginning. And then if we like it, maybe that's one of our recommendations, that all of the meetings always start with that kind of banner.
We did something for the EDC years ago where every meeting ended with it's called critique, which I thought the language is a bit harsh, but after the meeting, you go around and say how you felt the meeting went.
Commentary, oh, that's good. That's good, I like that actually at the end too, because it may look good at the front and then it may kind of devolve. Yeah. Okay, so the other thing we're trying out as a bit of an experiment is just to give a little bit of a orientation to what we're trying to do at the meeting in the agenda is to pose questions. So the question that we're trying to achieve on this accessibility check is, does the meeting feel accessible to you? So we went around the table. We could have had somebody comment about lighting. We could have had a comment about noise. We could have, as we go, you might tell me it's going too fast or something needs to be repeated. So it's open-ended, whatever is needed. We'll find out at the beginning, we'll adapt, and we'll review at the end. That makes sense? Okay. And then number 5, now we have the real work, is reviewing the action items from the previous meetings. And this is something that appears in the minutes, but do you want to just put them on the screen and we'll go over them? Some of them have been done and some of them have not been done.
Would you like me to review them?
That would be fabulous.
Okay, so future agenda is discuss furniture options. That's not happening today, that's ongoing. Councillor Jurgensen, discuss wayfinding solutions within the facility, meaning the community center, for the blind with Gillian Drake.
Zoom floating video.
I do apologize. I do need to still set that up with Jillian.
That's fine.
Can I ask the first one, discuss furniture options, was that for here or the new community center or
I think
altogether?
what I'm seeing is that number 1, 2, and 3 here are
Okay, for the
really
community
follow up on the presentation we had last time about the new community center.
Thank you.
So
Get pulled out of the minutes and they don't have context or.
Yeah, that's fine.
so
It's just because I missed the mouse meeting. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
right.
That's
we
fine.
had a very nice presentation, but there were loose ends.
Sure.
And one of them was furniture that we were curious about if it had been ordered, and there could be choices that would be more or less accessible. So I'm not sure who was supposed to do that. Was that Jillian was getting back to it?
We were gonna discuss it. Sometimes we've done just put next agenda items on the action list, so that's how they don't get lost. So I don't think we're gonna be doing that today because,
No.
yeah, so
And,
it's
and,
maybe next.
and Alex was going to follow up with her about blind accessibility issues, and I was going to follow up about hearing, which I have not done. So what I would like to suggest is now I will have time, it's good timing for me, to follow up about hearing. And Alex, we could combine or you could go separately. And both of us, or one or the other of us could also follow up on information about furniture.
You are muted now.
Absolutely. Jessica and I were going to reach out to Jillian Now, I think there would be some benefit in trying to see if we can do something together, but if we can't, then we can just do our own separate meetings as well.
Okay, so can we make an action that we will try to coordinate and go together, so that will be more efficient for her? And I would say if anybody else on the committee wants to join in, you know, they're welcome to come too, but they're not required to come. And we will try to do that sometime in December.
Audio now.
And I think one of the great benefits of doing it, approaching it together is one of the populations that we work with is the deafblind as well. So there's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah, and we will be mindful of mobility issues and
Absolutely.
cognitive issues and, you know, as much as we know, even though we are not experts on every disability.
No.
And if other people want to come along, we'll, you know, tell you when it's happening. And we will report back. So that was another thing Steph pointed out, the importance of if we go on these missions, that we need to report back.
Missions.
Okay, does that sound good to everybody? All right. And then everybody had an opportunity to share ideas with Daniel. And I think some people have, and we've had email from some people, so that's good. Thank you very much. I think that's an open invitation, eh, Daniel?
Did you hear from people?
From some, but not from many.
Audio now on mute.
Jessica and I are still going to submit feedback to Daniel as well.
Yeah, yep, everybody's going to soon, just wait. And then we had reports back. We had some reports back from Councillor Fast and from Robin and thinking there was somebody else.
Robin completed the transportation plan that's flagged here for Janet.
Yeah.
Robin and Angus.
Yeah, I spoke. So yeah, Councillor Fax action to review the perks plan, she did. And then I spoke with Janet about the transportation plan and realized that there's different people with different skill sets. And Robin's a very academic mind, which was quite useful for this. So she took that on.
Yes.
Along with Angus.
So we are going to, that inspired us. So we will come to that in the next part of the agenda. So I think that's an overview of the action items. Is that good? Yeah. Okay.
And Peter did OCP.
That was the meeting
that was, I
before.
think, before. But you make a very good point that keeping track of all these things, you know, as they accumulate, is important. And I think we are going to try to find a way to make sure we don't lose any bits and pieces. And Steph and Daniel are very important for that.
You're not going to lose anything.
We're not going to lose anything. That's what I like. Okay, that reassures me. Okay, so business arising from the minutes. So the questions for this section are, we've all done work. We've seen the work that each other has done. So what did we learn so far? And should we do more of this research based on existing documents? So I'm going to ask Steph if she can share the Excel file.
Yes.
Which was circulated. So basically what we realized is that just going from the website of the municipality, there's a list of all kinds of documents. And what Steph has done in this Excel sheet is to make a list of all those potential documents that we could look at. And the ones we've already looked at are on the topics that align with what came out of the survey. So if people said transportation, it's good to look at transportation. If people said parks, it's good to look at parks. So now people are seeing the Excel sheet, and there's a column with the items from the master plan that came off the website. And then there's a column that says, what have we looked at and what is not applicable? And we have other things we could look at. So I think we've done a good job so far. And I think just for keeping track of this, it's a way to say, oh, you know, we should have looked at that one. So I know Daniel and I had a chat today about accessibility in reference to the evacuation plan. Because people with disabilities may be left behind if we have to evacuate. So that might be an example of one of the existing documents that we would like to look at just to see if it already says something about accessibility or not. So the method to the madness here is, it's kind of our starting point. So the municipality already has documents. I don't know if the library has any documents we should add to this list, but Tina would know. So are there existing documents that already refer to accessibility? So in our report, we can say, you know, as of January 2024, accessibility was already referred to in these municipal documents, and that is our starting point. So in our report, we can say that is already done and now we're expanding on it. Or we haven't done that before, but now we're adding it. Does that make sense? So I also personally, this appeals to, I don't know what kind of brain I have. I used to do the scoring for the gym meet and for the track and field because there was a lot of activities and you had to keep track of a lot of things. So it appeals to me because once we do our report, if we say, you know, this plan says this about accessibility and now we're elaborating on it, I think it should be clearer who the ball gets thrown to on the implementation side. So if somebody wrote a plan about evacuation and we say this and this and this about accessibility should be incorporated into that plan, and whoever's in charge of that plan gets the ball once the report is filed. That's kind of the logic in my head. Is that
Makes sense.
got anything to do with reality?
Yeah.
Does that mean we're updating 15 plans?
I guess if that's the thing, if like, you know, or it could even just be like when this is updated.
When this is
I
updated?
Yeah.
guess, you know, it's the sort of a.
And I want to try to make it easier when we write our report. So everybody who's already doing jobs, looking after these things, can just say, Zoom, you know, page 5, second paragraph, that's the part I have to read because that's my piece of the action.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes it less work for people to check on that.
Isn't that been identified as a barrier in itself, implementation and monitoring and evaluating? Because a lot of these plans, as you're describing, have dates for not just implementation, hopefully, but, and including an accessibility plan, a date for review or
Can I just check, Alex and Jessica, is the audio okay for you? Because Robin is sitting right beside me, so I can hear her, but I'm not sure the mic is picking her up.
I can hear her okay.
So can I.
Okay, okay, good. Well, I like that point a lot, so Steph can figure out how to keep track of this, but
I was just gonna open up the draft and type it in right now about the,
okay.
so maybe, can you give me a sec to find it?
So while she's looking for it, in 6.1, there's kind of a list of what we've already done. And people have written it up, and I don't think we need to spend time talking about it today. It will be transformed into some kind of useful appendix, you know, and then in the report, we can say, those appendices say where we're starting from. And here we go. And then we're gonna need to, our main exercise today is trying to come up with the structure of the report so that we can write the content. But then I'm on the same track as you, Robin, that if we are smart about this, it will take us to organizing our recommendations in a way that we can do evaluation later. So I think that is at the end of the report, it's like, okay, here's our recommendations. And we need to continue to gather information because, you know, we have to hear from more people and we have to see how things are going. And we can build in, you know, we recommend a follow-up protocol of some sort be, you know, what's the right word for it, be created so that we can kind of have this ongoing quality improvement. And there's probably ways the Muni does that, which you guys know, but I think that's where it's, if we do this right, it'll be easy to have the checklist and see and what happened here and what happened there and what didn't happen. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have this section 7, monitoring and evaluating.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
can we just slide implementation into that category? Does that make sense? It's like,
Well, I think it's evaluation of what, so it's evaluation of the implementation. It's kind of implied.
okay, fine. And what was the note to make here?
Has everything we've said we're gonna do or any relation to other plans as well? Has it actually happened?
Yeah. So I think
That's
it's,
the evaluation.
I think at the end of this, not today, but maybe in January, we can make, you know, we can propose some kind of score sheet or report card or something like that.
Some measures.
Yeah,
So maybe.
and it might just be,
Update.
you know, like a report card kind of thing. So that's great. Okay, so we have learned some things, you've written about it. I think it's just an open question for today. Do we need to look at more documents? But let's go, I would like to go to 6.2. That's okay with you?
That's not okay with me. I would like to get an action out of this. Do we
Okay.
want someone, so we've identified the evacuation plan as being one to review.
Right, okay. Does
That's
anybody
important.
have anything
Would anyone
else
like
that
to do
is
that?
To look at.
leaping out at them right now?
Couple I had,
Went to the cultural master plan. I don't know if that's,
can you scroll down?
Yes.
Or scroll up?
Peter would be somebody.
I was thinking what's the recreation plan?
Yeah, that's one that jumped out to me as like,
Yeah,
I think would have.
Is that is different from parks?
Yes.
yeah,
Because it's like programming?
Yeah.
Okay.
actually, there's a few, even the housing needs report, some respects could have, because that comes up a lot in, but that's maybe for the other committee. I'm not sure.
I kind of see this first pass as just get the document and search on the word accessibility and see if there's any hits.
Yeah,
So it need not be studying it in detail.
yeah, no, that's pretty, I totally agree. Just to see, because there's several that could be,
Well, let's just go down the list. Okay.
Right.
So I don't know what strategic plans are, but it sounds amorphous.
There,
Those are like council's annual strategic plans.
I can approve
Council's
that.
saying each year, saying like, this year we want to do these projects.
So have they ever had any plans about accessibility?
Yes, last one was accessibility committee.
this.
So maybe we should do a search on that one.
But to some extent, they're like,
This one's kind of.
you know, it's like they do them each year, so like they've done the 2023 one. And they're
They're-
working on the 2024 one.
It's
They're sort of
been
like trying to
implemented.
point- Yeah, documents.
So you can just be like like this, because
Yeah.
they're working on it on Friday, aren't they, or soon?
Yeah,
Coming,
it should be coming in the new year.
So why don't we, I'm looking for another word that is not complete and it's not to review. It's kind of like, yeah, of course.
oh, like duh?
Yeah.
What's accessible?
what's
No one knows what that means.
What is the appropriate word?
or in progress?
Implied?
Why don't we just say yes?
Yeah, or a check, yeah.
You know, because that is like necessary. It's kind of logically necessary.
We can task Daniel with just making sure in the.
Whatever
are you
the word
there
is.
as well, Tina, at the strategic planning session?
Will I be at the
Do
strategic?
you go to
plan?
those?
No.
No, Dan, no, you just make
I
sure
go.
that, you don't go?
I go,
Yeah, so you can make sure that they're,
Can you also add there, I have in the many documents that have flown before my eyes, I have seen references to age-friendly.
that's appendix C of the transportation plan.
I looked at that.
And I think we
And
should
it's actually-
search on the word accessibility.
She has done
I
that.
did.
And I
did
think
that.
we should search in whatever documents. We should be alert to whenever it says age-friendly.
Well, it's throughout the whole
But
report.
I don't think that's bad news. I think that
No.
it says, like, we already have a great start because we already have, you know, in many reports, reference to accessibility
One thing
and
that-
reference to age-friendly.
Is well done in there, I would point out, is that it references Owen barriers.
Okay,
So I
so
think-
that's another search term we can use.
Yeah.
So you're
So,
doing more than just control F on these reviews, right? Yeah.
Well, we have for the ones that we've picked so far, but if we just want to kind of do a fast skim of other ones, that's an approach.
yeah, I think that's for this committee appropriate.
It's
Not to
just
have to
a
do
kind of
too
the over.
in-depth. Yeah, an
the-
overview.
And, you know, there could be other words people, does anybody want to add other words, you know? If I sincerely doubt there's going to be words like hearing loss and vision loss.
Inclusion's one that comes up a
Inclusion.
lot.
So we'll have our search terms. That's helpful.
But
Okay.
I think just sticking with accessibility is,
Accessibility, I think I like age-friendly because it's kind of you know, people who are older have a lot of little problems as opposed to one big problem. But I think being age-friendly kind of catches, you know, the mild versions of things, you know, like you just need the font a little bigger, and you just need the noise a little quieter, but they may not, and you know, and their knees aren't working. So it's kind of more of a mixture of things that are mild as opposed to, you know, somebody like Alex or Jessica who, you know, have a very, very specific, you know, extreme problem that needs to be addressed in a very specific way. But age-friendly kind of is a bit global. So if we lost the list.
I was thinking maybe the newcomer guide or the childcare.
Can I show you the newcomer guide?
Yeah, has it got anything?
I just did a control F on access and it's accessing Wi-Fi at the library, beaches, parks,
Oh,
and.
good, yeah, that might be.
Oh, you did it on all of these
Already.
already? Oh, okay.
No, as we were talking, I just thought this might be, because it's kind of all about our community
Yeah, exactly.
document, so it might be a nice one to
Yeah, I thought,
pay attention to.
what
Yeah,
do you guys?
I think,
Newcomer guide?
yeah, that's all good. So I think this gives us kind of a high altitude. This is where we're starting from. And then when we get to our recommendations, you know, it's not going to address every single thing. It's going to focus and have priorities. So do we want to go back to that list and just,
Audio now unmuted. Steph Short has started screen. Zoom.
Point of access to the chair.
Press ESC or
We just have a question. What would you recommend for us to try to break into conversation when we have something to contribute? Would you like us to raise our hand?
I think that works. Or
Okay.
you can just talk if we don't notice the hand.
I can support you in noticing it, sorry if I.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It's my view. I need my gallery view. Okay. Okay, so going down the list. So we have a community profile. So our choices are NA, complete, is not applicable. Should we review it or not?
What do you think? Tina, do you know the community
Sorry, the-
profile?
I don't.
It's pretty overarching. This is our population, this is the main industry, this is.
Does it have stats on disabilities?
Demographics.
It is demographics from the like census, that's my memory. So
Well,
it's
there
like-
are disability questions in the census.
I don't know if it has them in there.
Nope, someone can.
So I think the answer is review this one.
Can I ask a little bit of clarity on what, when we're looking at these documents, we're looking for whether they refer to something to do with accessibility? And is that because we want to go back to them and have them do something else with that document? Or is it so that we know what to put in our work plan because something's already there and we don't need to
That's-
repeat it? Is that
I think it's
general
like, it's
idea?
just to say, this is where we're starting. These activities in the municipalities, as reflected in these documents, already mention accessibility. And they, you know, and so there are good things to say, that we're not starting from zero. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but we can make recommendations that extend or add to fill in gaps where there is something that we would like to be there.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
So I think, for example, if I can check this one and see if there are any statistics about disabilities, which would come from the census. And that I think is really important because then we kind of know who might need something and what kind of thing they might need.
It's useful for our accessibility plan.
I think so, yeah.
I've looked at like recently, only a couple months ago, but it might not have been the latest one at the community profile. And that one at least
Looks like you're
did
done
not
talking. So
have,
Zoom us has new.
sorry.
Oh, you're okay, keep going.
Okay, sorry, I don't know.
And
what-
lowered.
The computer's saying weird stuff. No, don't mind me. Sorry. So, I looked at it and it did, at least that one did not have, disability info in it. The short form census doesn't include disability questions. I've never been asked disability questions. Perhaps in the long form they do.
Yeah.
I've never done the long form census though.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much information it'll give us. I mean, like I said, the one I saw, I think was old. I think it was like 2011 or something. I came across it for just a totally unrelated reason. But it may not, but I mean, I suppose it could be worth, looking at. I'm not sure the last time one was like, the profile was updated.
So it may be something where we say, we looked, we didn't find anything that would
Yeah,
be useful for planning.
I'm
So
also,
we can look harder, because I think there definitely are disability surveys,
Yeah.
which are follow-ups to the census, and Stats Canada has definitely published on those, and I
yeah,
think, I don't know what granularity we could get out of them if they would give us for the island, but
yeah. I would love it if they gave us a lot of good info. I just don't know that it will.
so we can basically say, we don't have it at hand in these documents. We would like to have it. We can see if we can access what might already have been collected, or we can just put it in our plan for what other information we might want to try to gather ourselves.
I'm also willing to look through the evacuation
View
plan
options.
because I think that one's really important.
If Schultz has
to give
Okay, so
Okay,
we'll
we got
sign,
names, thank you,
This is-
Jessica.
we'll assign Jessica, and Robin volunteered for something. What was that?
Housing,
Housing and, what's the other one?
Recreation?
The recreation. Okay, that.
and then, so did we just review the community profile and call that done and say there's nothing in it?
Well, no, put my name, put Jessica's name. Hey, wasn't that what she?
Can you do two, Jessica?
Audio now on mute.
Sorry, what was that? I'm
Did you do
sorry.
the- Did you do the community profile as well? Take another swipe?
Or I can-
Do you know when the latest one was, so I make sure I'm looking at the right one?
I can send you the link right now,
Perfect, thank you so much.
or both of those, I will. Actually, after the meeting, I'll send both.
And if you would just want to look at what is there already, and then if we need to dig further and talk to Stats Canada, I can do that. Okay, so the newcomer guide, does somebody want to review that one? I actually think that's possibly very important. Because we heard from people at the meeting in the summer, I couldn't live in the city anymore, but I could live on the island. So I think there are people who are making their decisions to move to the island for accessibility reasons. So that might be really important for newcomer information.
That would be a surprise to me. That would be a big surprise to me if that's true.
We heard it.
Did you?
We did.
Because I don't think of Bowen as being terribly accessible, and I don't think of it as a place people would think I'd rather be there.
Well,
I mean, I can see in
Farther from hospital.
Alex and Jessica's case or with Camp Bowen, but otherwise, yeah.
Well, I was surprised too,
Transportation.
but I was so impressed.
Okay. Wow.
And basically, the two things that made sense when we tried to unpack that was people, mobility is a devil because of all the slopes. But
And the lack of sidewalks.
Transportation.
there isn't a lot of traffic.
Yes.
Right, it's true.
Safety, that's true.
So that was one part of the physical environment that was easier than the city. And the other thing was more the social environment.
Right.
So basically this feeling that you just don't have to keep explaining yourself all the time because people just know what to do.
Right.
And that, I think, that is definitely, something I see in the street, people understand, what individuals' needs are and respond to them. Because, in the city, everything would be anonymous.
Sense of community.
Yeah. Okay, so you can plug me in for that one? I'm curious about that. Parks plan, is complete.
That's done.
Housing is Robin, community childcare plan, do we want to do that one?
Do we need to do them all today, do you think? Or-
I don't think so,
Robin
but you
seems
kind of,
busy.
you kind of see the method to the madness, and Peter and Janet may want to
Maybe the
pick
next
up on
meeting.
some of these.
Yeah.
But we're kind of, this is a doable task, we just check it off. Did we find something or not? And then the reports people have been sending are the answers, and eventually that'll be compiled, and then in the report we'll just say, yes, we have a starting place.
Now, can I just ask, starting at number 15, emergency program,
Yeah,
then they're all subheadings, correct?
correct.
Are they all separate documents?
Yes.
Okay.
So the reports and publications page, it's been there, it's got everything.
Okay.
It makes it so easy to have the links in here.
One thing I was also going to add when Tina was mentioning, why are we kind of doing this, is if there is policy development going on at municipality or an OCP review at some point, or if any of IM's policies are being reviewed, this is a good indicator of what, in terms of accessibility could be added or.
I mean, I'm thinking even just a very simple thing, like we reviewed, 23 documents, and of them, half of them mentioned it already.
Yeah.
And the other ones, it was not relevant, or the other ones, should consider this in the future. So it's just like it's that
State of
kind
the
of,
Union.
as time goes on, you can say now all of them say something.
So I guess it's like the twofold, because one, it's like reviewing them to be like, these are recommendations in those reports that we're gonna include in here because we want them to be visible and carry forward.
And congratulate ourselves.
Yeah, and then some of them are more just reviewing to say like, oh, this one doesn't exist in here, so the recommendation is more like evacuation plan. Should be sure that it's mentioning accessibility stuff. Or the newcomer guide should be updated.
Right.
It's actually being updated soon, so,
They're up right
yeah.
So I think, go ahead, Tina.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, so we could, sorry, I'm gonna let my brain think about that one for just a sec. The idea that within the plan that we create, ultimately, we're creating a plan which will come forward to council to either approve or not approve. And then that will be the actions that will.
Right.
So within that plan that we create, we could have some sections that say all policies, plans, blah, 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 created in the future should include comment about or should include an accessibility lens when they're created. All existing policies, plans should be reviewed with an accessibility lens. That way we don't necessarily have to say this one's good and this one's not and that one. I'm thinking of in terms of us creating a plan with some work things that ultimately we can only recommend that other people and departments and committees do some work, but we don't have any authority over them. We're just making a recommendation or
Kind of pointing it out.
or even say, we would recommend that timeline be placed to review things with an accessibility lens. Is that sort of the idea with?
I think so.
Documents?
I think so. That is like,
Okay.
I just don't want to write a report and it's like, well, who would do that? And it's like,
Well-
well, whoever wrote the last one is going to write another one and they can make it better.
Yeah, it's a plan, you know?
It's a plan to
It's a
plan.
plan to,
Yeah,
and anything in the future could be more of a part of strategy as well, included in that
yeah.
kind of planning. Daniel could speak to that more maybe, but the idea also is if there's an accessibility plan that we've created and looked at other documents in the process, that's the idea for referencing this plan, the accessibility plan for future policy development or whatever.
So Alex and Jessica, Steph is writing on, she's editing the document online and she's adding in these comments. So you can trust that she's doing that. Do you want us to read it back to you or what should we do?
No, that's okay.
Do you think it should go under delivery of services
Maybe,
information?
I think maybe hold on that till we talk about headings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think.
Oh, yeah, we
But
might.
I think what we have done here is we've kind of got two levels. One is
Not gonna get lost.
the content of these documents needs to include accessibility, but those documents also need to be in accessible formats.
Yeah.
There's kind of two sides, the content and the format.
And just the other piece I think too, so Steph's written, like all existing plans should be reviewed for accessibility and being updated. I think maybe too, if people review a document and are like, oh, there's no reference to it, we could call out specific plans too. Right? Like, it's one thing to be like, oh, they
Like
all,
newcomer
we
guy.
should do them all. And versus it's like, well, no, we noticed this document doesn't have it,
any.
should have something.
That's right, so that Excel chart can turn into something that is a green or a yellow or a red or, something for action. Okay. That makes so I think we're all kind of in the same zone there.
We're going down the list.
We do have 6.2, and Sue Ellen said something about this having a recent development.
So this was a draft I'll just speak to it. Okay.
Can you guys, Alex and Jessica, can you hear Daniel?
Audio now.
Yeah, I can hear Daniel fine.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, this was a draft plan brought to council that was referred to a committee of the whole. And council referred it to the transportation committee and environment committee. But then at the last council meeting, council also extended the invitation to the accessibility committee. I don't know if we've scheduled that meeting,
The accessibility committee?
like that committee, the whole review of it.
I'm not aware of the committee that
okay.
all being reviewed, no.
But anyway, so it's specifically referred, so it would come to you or as part of a future meeting. So Sue Ellen had wanted on the agenda to raise it. awareness, but then it said we're gonna have a separate meeting to look at it.
So the question we put here was, do we have any comments for council regarding this plan? But we haven't actually received it yet.
You have it, it's linked
It's
to the
linked.
agenda.
It's linked.
But this, I think what Daniel's trying to explain is that asking for comments was before you were actually invited to this committee of the whole.
There's going to be a future meeting that discusses the active transportation.
So it is what I'm getting out of this is the question, do we have any comments? But when and how we provide those comments.
Yeah, so we don't
What
need
is
to,
that?
so, the committee now like has it, but we'll be having a separate time to specifically, so people want to look at it now. That's
Yeah.
great.
I took a
But-
look. Did you?
I haven't had time.
It's quite extensive, so.
So shall we have the action from today that people should look at it?
Sure.
And
Yes.
we will tell them when we are scheduled to discuss comments.
Council will schedule it and let you know.
Yeah. So the action for today is read it and anticipate providing comments. Is that good? Okay. All right, now the really fun part here is this accessibility plan. So as we've said before, there are templates and that the staff will, be able to fill in many of the beginning parts of the report because it has to do with, information about the municipality. But the meat of the matter has to do with what are the headings under which we are going to put information. And we have a few choices. Is everybody okay nobody needs a break? I think we've lost Drew left for the day.
Very, yeah.
He ran, so but if anybody else needs a break, this would be a good time for a break. You good? I don't see anybody. Okay, so what we have done here for this discussion is thought about what are the heading structures that we could consider.
Sorry, I was just asking Steph, you wanted me to share.
Okay. And we have, for example, headings from the province. We have headings we have generated ourselves out of feedback from our survey. We have the example of Port Coquitlam that Daniel shared within the last week or so. We have there's a list of documents we just looked at itself, kind of gives us some hints about possible headings. So,
And we had the themes from community engagement.
and we had themes from community engagement. So Steph has organized the different sources that we could look at, just for examples, and what the headings are. So my kind of hope here is that some of these, like transportation, is a heading in just about everything. Right? So if we look at number 3, if you scroll a bit, Steph, transportation is there. It's in everyone. So transportation is in all of them. So I think that's pretty obvious. Transportation has to be a heading. And there are going to possibly be variants on the subheadings. But if we just kind of look at the high level right now, does anybody else have any that kind of like, this is one we should keep?
Alex and Jessica raised their hand.
Oh, great. Alex and Jessica.
Audio now unmuted.
My thought is like along the lines of what other plans, so for example, evacuation plan, transportation plan, if it's arranged that way, it's easy for those working on the other plans to cross-reference.
It's easier for Bowen?
Yeah, for Bowen, for anyone who's working on either implementation or on
You mean like the transportation?
like the
committee?
transportation committee can look at the transportation section of the accessibility plan and that kind of thing, so to foster cross collaboration. I know that's something Mayor Leonard was really interested in seeing if there could be a lot of kind of cross pollination there.
Oh,
So I
good.
think it makes sense according to the different committees that we have. And then obviously for things we don't have committees for, there would have to be other headings generated.
So I think that big list of documents we just looked at, is that similar to the list of committees?
Space with applications messages.
Yes.
Similar, but not.
Not identical.
Exhaustive, I guess would be the.
But I
View
think
options.
organizing it according to the
Sexual
documents makes sense because those other committees,
floating.
they know what documents they're already working with. So this would make it simple to.
In that framework, though, I'm curious because one of my things that I wanted to email and then life happened, but I still will email.
If short has stopped screen.
Is that
System dialog. View options. Back.
sorry, tactile marking
Zoom floating video.
along the
Zoom floating video.
path, the
Multi-use
multi-use path where there isn't what do you call that? Not a
Physical
curb, but where
marking.
there isn't a physical marking to make sure that that's marked from the road. And the ferry, the down by the ferry, Cardina, where you cross to go to the ferry, that there's or more like when you cross to come back from the ferry, there's a weird on an angle crosswalk that needs a tactile marking. So tactile markings, I'm not sure which, because it's like transportation, but not.
It's part
Like,
of
I'm not
active
sure.
transportation
Is
plan.
it part of the
Because that's the
transportation
multi-use
plan?
path.
Okay. Okay.
So that's where it would fit.
Fair enough.
It-
I just wanted to see where I just was trying to understand where that would fit, because that's one of my biggest daily concerns. But
I do think there does need to be an other category for things
yeah,
that there
there
isn't
probably
another document.
does. Yeah.
There is, under, when I was
Talking now, yep.
reviewing the transportation documents, there is that Cardina safety traffic report
Right.
that
Yeah.
highlights a lot of the issues you're mentioning.
So what I'm gonna suggest, this is another complication that I hadn't thought about, but what I'm hearing, just to see if I get it right, there's all these documents, which are fairly, there's a couple of dozen.
Yeah.
And they somewhat map to committees, but it's not one-to-one and it's not exactly the same. So are there fewer committees than there are documents? Is it like?
Let's hope so.
Well, that's what I am
It's a
hoping.
lot of documents.
So
There's a lot of
if we matched up, if we had a column for committees for each of those documents, would it be would we have like these three go with that committee, or what kind of
That's-
mapping is this?
That's what exists now, so you will see on this agenda, I would have linked the strategic plan here, it's in the template. For the Parks Committee, I always link the Parks Plan to their agenda, Transportation Plan, the Transportation
It's on the
Agenda.
website for.
Housing Committee, there's a few documents, Environment Committee, there's tons. Climate Action Strategy, the SEEP,
So if we went with a list of committees, each committee would have one or more documents.
But there's also
Yes.
further documents, right?
yeah.
And if you just go by committee, then all your actual departments of staff are not necessarily captured at all.
Yeah,
Because committees are a voluntary side thing, and then there's the actual departments that do the things.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
so I'm just talking out loud here. So what I'm thinking is these other examples of templates that we have, like the Port Coquitlam one or the provincial one, they don't have 1,000,001 headings. They have like a half a dozen headings. So maybe for the high level headings, we should stick to a smaller set of topics. And then when we get in the weeds of all these committees and documents, we can just say, oh, that one kind of goes under transportation, or that one kind of goes under, and slot them in subheadings.
Well, if we're looking at these headings relating to Port Coquitlam, province and BIM, community engagement.
That's what we got out of our investigations.
The main ones seem transportation, employment, information and communications, and maybe housing. There's, you know,
Let's work.
and I think if, for Port Coquitlam, which is fairly large municipality, there's what, 2, 4, 5?
5.
So we wouldn't probably need as many.
I think, yeah, half a dozen is plenty.
I think we just cover the main ones.
So, and the order, we can decide later, but if we just want to say, okay, let's look for about a half a dozen major headings. Transportation, yes, that's everywhere.
I'm just wondering if we could look at the section 3 there, the community engagement response themes. Is there anything in there, in those A to G, that does not fit into either Port Coquitlam's headings or the provincial template headings? Like, is there anything that came up for us that doesn't fit? And the only thing that, for me, like, I think beach access, I think about the, because there's built environment on both those two others.
Exactly.
But then there's physical environment, but maybe built environment when it comes to beaches is because you build a ramp or you build a whatever, so.
Or maybe.
Because we can't really do anything about physical environment other than what we build on it. So maybe everything to do with that does fit under built environment.
Some put physical and built
Right.
as a category.
As a category, yes.
And on Bowen, we'd need
Yeah.
more physical because of the rural nature of
Yeah.
our.
So I think you guys are onto something here, that, you know, we had a lot of comments about beaches, but I don't think they have too many beaches in Port Coquitlam. So that's a big deal for us.
Right.
But it kind of should fit under a broader category. And is it a built environment? Is it parks? You know, what is the bigger category? So maybe this is, Daniel had some ideas about this. I don't know if you want to speak now about this, where do beaches fit and how do we kind of.
I think I would instinctively go physical and built environment, and I'd probably put stores in that too. And leave
Physical
delivery-
built environment?
Yeah, and leave delivery of service to be like delivery of municipal.
Municipal services.
Yeah.
As
So like
Because
delivery
we
of.
can't control what private
Yeah.
business does
Yeah,
in their delivery of service.
and that's not
But we
really
talked
the
about
scope
advocacy
of
later.
No,
the municipal
that's right.
accessibility plan.
But it's-
Say it again, Robin, I wasn't.
Tina was highlighting that stores or private service delivery isn't really, you know, part of that.
Well, I think this is another decision okay, Alex, let me just say what I was gonna say and then I'll ask Alex to speak. So I think there are different ways we could slice this. So we could decide that we're gonna have a bunch of items which refer to things that are directly under the municipality's control.
Right.
And then we could kind of have shadow items that are, you know, also built environment, but they're not the municipality's property. They're stores or other kinds of property where they could do advocacy, even though they don't control it. So do we organize it like a bunch of municipal things and then a bunch of other things that the municipality could influence but doesn't control? Or do we go with a topic like built and physical environment and then have a section under that for municipal properties and then another section for, you know, other people's property?
Well, I think where you can cover off the other is under barriers and Bowen context. Because barriers is one of our, isn't that one of our headings?
Yeah, we've identified barriers with many businesses on Bowen. But maybe the action plan is like, you know, it's for identifying outreach that's needed or education that's needed.
Or advocacy.
Yeah, something like that. So we're saying this is a barrier that's been identified. It's not directly municipal control what we're gonna do.
I'm gonna let Alex talk
Yeah.
and see if he has idea on this.
Now unmuted.
Okay, I was thinking along the lines of organizing it like two kind of subheadings that would be municipal and then external agencies, but
recommendations.
which could
Yeah.
have recommendations and things like that. And I think that would be easier so the municipality can see what its responsibilities are in the plan. And external agencies can look for ideas in the external agency section. And then under that have things like built environment and those kind of things in each of those two categories.
So kind of have mirrored
Yeah, have them
topics.
mirrored. Exactly.
So-
Have them mirrored, but have them in separate lists so that people can have less to go through if they're trying to find something that applies to them.
I think that makes sense, and I think that's a good place to start. So let me just see if I can say it. So we could have our main sections about properties or activities that the municipality has direct control over, and that it's already doing planning and it's already doing those documents. But then we can have an extra section that kind of mirrors some of those same topics, but it's referring to advocacy for, like, what was the term you used for them, Alex?
You're now
External agencies, so as Jessica said.
External agencies.
Yeah.
So those would be things that are on the island and that the citizens have an interest in, but the municipality can, advocate, but it can't actually control.
The other
Does that
thing
work for you, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been thinking of it like, oh, it would all go under whatever the category, transportation.
Well,
And in the transportation, we would say this is what the municipality is going to do, and this is what.
or public spaces.
Yeah, just whatever category, it's like, so in the transportation section would be like municipality does these things and then advocates for these areas to do these.
Why don't we just, for now, start this with things the municipality controls
Yeah, that's.
and the external things. And then we can always rearrange it later. And I think we must do the municipality things, and the external things are things we want to do, but it may not be as necessary for the purposes of this report this time. So, okay,
Or we can include that in recommendations.
yeah. I like that. So is that how we're gonna do it? So we'll focus on what the municipality controls first, and then we'll have, and everybody else on the island could do this too, and use parallel categories to the extent that makes sense.
And you told me to send this to
Okay.
you, and then I can be taking it back in. Okay. I'm gonna let Daniel drive.
Okay, so we have transportation, yay. And we have something else, which could be built environment, physical environment, or I heard the word space.
Public space or space.
Built and physical environment covers
Covers pretty
a
much.
lot of,
Well, to me, built environment is architects build stuff versus outdoor. So that's the distinction, indoor and outdoor, that I sometimes see. What do you think? What's the terminology or the way of thinking about it?
Well, the physical environment is the out there.
Like,
whereas
for
the built
example,
environment
if
is the building.
the outdoor space would be, the slope of walkways, or, whether there's, it's the outdoor versus the indoor. Is kind of a way we could divide it, or we could just put it together. So Daniel, what do you think makes sense?
And I'm just looking at,
Look at other
like
plans.
local includes built environment, prevents or removes barriers from public spaces, parks and facilities, provide welcoming spaces for all. And that's kind of what I would capture too, is like, as we build a trail or a railing, I would tend to capture that in built environment as well. say that that's included, because the type of things that we've talked about, we've talked about like library community center, it's like buildings that's within built environment, but I think beach access or trails or whatever else would fit within that. That would be my.
Let's do, so this example Jessica brought up about the multi-use pathway, which was a hot topic in many discussions. It's kind of, there is a construction element to it, but it really is outdoors.
Yeah, and then I would probably go, well, multi-use path goes under transportation, so I guess it's what's the,
Right,
where is that line between its built environment versus its.
yeah, because some would go, that would go under transportation.
So just to kind of,
The Vancouver definition, goals, they've got built environment and public spaces.
so I like that.
I think you said built environment and home. That's clear, then you know.
That's clear, that's
If
clear.
we provide a definition that works for us, well, what does built environment mean?
And then we
So
can,
Oxford Dictionary says it's man-made structures, features, facilities
Yeah.
viewed collectively as an environment in which people live and work. So it basically says man-made structures.
Yeah.
Is built environment, which
so is
to me is what I think of built is, it's not what nature grew, it's what we as humans
and if it's a
put on
building,
top of that.
if it's a building, it's obvious.
Yeah.
If it's,
But if it's a ramp or even the multi-use pathway, we built that, a bunch of humans decided to build that.
so why don't we
on top
call
of
it built
nature.
environment? And then under
We
that,
can define
make
it.
headings that are, structures, buildings.
Yeah.
We could even for Bowen list, I think Daniel gave some examples of the properties that the municipality has control over, like the community center and would the library be on
Yep,
that
yep.
list? So then we can, then it's, it's, everybody knows what those things are. And then we could have other public spaces, and we could include some of those other things, and we could note about, for whatever, see the transportation section.
Yeah.
Because there might be some intersection. Okay, so we got transportation, we got built environment. Number 3, what's number 3 gonna be? So we have, let's try this one. We have, I'm just jumping around. We have meetings and services. So is there a heading for services?
I
There's
think
a,
service delivery would be your, did that kind of cover?
Service delivery.
and delivery of
So that's
services is in the
programs,
provincial
that's
one.
meetings, that's
So-
events, that's
So shall we take
water service.
services?
Service delivery or services?
And then we can have subheadings. And the subheadings would be meetings.
What does the Quitland one have in relation to them?
Sorry, it has service delivery.
Yeah, okay.
You mean within the plan?
Their first heading is service delivery.
Yeah, service delivery.
Service.
So we can go back and kind of rearrange the order if we like, but I think service delivery is in the provincial plan, it's in the Coquitlam plan. And in our
So-
island stuff, we have meetings came up. So meetings would be a topic under services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they include a lot of, in the Port Coquitlam one, the nice thing that I like is it includes staff.
Yeah,
Staff exhibit accessibility,
Yes.
awareness, and competency, which leads to training and leads to things that you could speak to about the actual staff who's working.
education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Customer service. and-
So the
Yeah, the
way,
Vancouver
the
one
way-
is governance and services.
the way.
So that includes municipal employees.
Yeah, as well as the council and mayor.
The way I would yes, that's a good distinction, virtual versus in person. But another way, like to me, if we're gonna have an accessible meeting, it's the physical space, it's the technology, and it's the behaviors. And so that's a slightly different, I mean, the staff would need to be trained in appropriate behaviors. They may need to be trained about using technology. They may need to, know how to adjust the lighting or, manipulate properties of the room.
Well, I think-
So is staff,
I think that goes under a different category, maybe.
well,
Well,
it's service
isn't there-
delivery, but it goes under,
There's information and communication
Yeah.
too.
yeah. Well, let's keep staff there and we'll figure out how we want to handle that. Information and communication.
All right, Alex and Jessica have their hand up.
Thanks. Go ahead, Alex.
I would
Okay, so it was I just wanted to say like we were talking about behavior and staff having training. I know a lot of staff went earlier this year did training on how to make documents accessible when I joined council, so that I just wanted to kind of give a shout out there as a good example of what that kind of looks like
Right.
in practice.
Thank you. So is information and communication, is that your point about documents? You want to say more, Alex? Your hand is up. Are you done?
audio now.
Yes, sorry, it was just not
Okay.
letting me over it.
I just didn't want to cut you off. So you mentioned about documents. So is that part of services or is it a separate category? Like we've been talking about all these documents and how the format has to be accessible in addition to the content being about accessibility.
Since the documents underpin services, that probably would fall under service delivery. What do you think, Jessica?
That's my gut feeling too. I mean, people can feel free to disagree on that, but that would be my thought too, as services. But maybe a heading under, like a subheading under services.
So Daniel, can we just look for the other examples? Is information, if we look like at Coquitlam or the provincial model, is information and communication is a separate topic.
Yeah.
Under Port Coquitlam, and it's a separate topic under the province. So,
I didn't think of communications. That is another place that it would fit very neatly, actually.
Well, some of that, I think information and communications also covers like technology.
yes, they would also, so I think this thing about, in environment, technology, behavior is going to be a recurring theme. I don't know if we can get to the details later. So I think we have transportation, we have built environment, we have service delivery, we have information and communication. So let's go back to the Bowen Island commentaries and see what else we need to put somewhere from our survey.
Transportation. Sorry.
We got transportation, we got beaches under physical and built environment. The stores and that's going to be in the section on, external influence. Housing, so where does that go?
I put it under built environment as well. I'm gonna put these two here, and these are kind of the so housing and stores I've put under built environment and public spaces.
And that, I guess, that kind of depends if we're putting, the municipality, I guess, has business licenses, and I guess they could influence businesses to be accessible
Yeah.
through some mechanisms. I don't
I would
really
think they'll
know.
look into it, through business licensing.
Oh, handicap parking.
Yeah.
I think parking is actually really, parking is definitely what, parking and getting into stores. came out of the comments. So maybe that part
Don't
of,
get me started on parking.
Wouldn't that be the Economic Development Committee?
I
Would
think,
they look into some of that accessibility?
They mostly advocate for the business themselves. So they would say to the
Right.
business, what do you need for support?
so I think a good thing to remember is that we're the first phase of accessibility requirements, we being public entities, right?
Yeah.
Government and public entities. Coming down the pipe in the future will be rules for private business. They haven't come out yet, but they will. And so I'm just thinking, it's maybe not our role to even, or maybe we just don't, it's beyond our scope at this
Yeah, I
point to
agree.
even start to think about how we would influence private business because they don't have to listen to us in any way, shape, or form. Not that we shouldn't advocate, but they're gonna have their own set of rules, which are gonna come from the government, say, you have to do this, 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 and this if you're operating a business. And I think that'll be a ton for them when it comes to that point, and they're gonna be floundering and needing help.
And
So
some of it, like physical accessibility, I know it's like BC building code requirement, but so essentially it's like if you build a new building.
Yeah.
You have to meet the new standards.
That's
Lots of
right.
old buildings, but the one that don't, and so it's like there's not requirements to.
But again, that comes from a higher level of government that we don't actually have to do anything about.
So shall we move this stores and business, section D, shall we move it to the end and put it
Yeah, it'd be
under
nice
where
to
we
have
might have
another section of-
advocacy for, you know, the external people?
Yeah.
Just because we did make the effort to get community engagement, and so
Yeah.
we ignore 90% of it because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not our job.
Right.
And I think,
But no, it's good to recognize that, saying this is
And
what we
I-
heard
and
and we
I,
don't have influence over.
and I do
Right.
think it, you know, we could make this, you know, it's the carrot or the stick. It's like, you know, we could celebrate businesses that, you know, take action to become more accessible. And for example, you know, open table, if you book in a restaurant and you go to the restaurant, then they do the follow-up and it asks questions about, you know, was it noisy? Was it, you know, so they're kind of edging into asking for accessibility ratings.
Right.
So that's something that is like, it's just like if you want a gold star for being an accessible place, we'll give you a gold star. And tell them what they'd have to do to get the gold star.
Yeah.
You know, that's the education part, maybe.
Awareness and education.
Awareness and
I wonder if
awareness.
there's someone doing that,
There are.
like DABC or someone else, is maybe doing that kind of give you a gold star or rate you for
There really are.
private industries, yeah.
There really
Yeah, I know
are.
there are for travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audio now unmuted.
If I may,
Go ahead.
something that would be conducive, because we have a brain trust of a lot of knowledge within this committee. And I think if it was framed to the businesses as, maybe it doesn't fit into the plan, but maybe it's a separate document that says, here's some recommendations that would make Bowen more accessible. I think a lot of businesses want to do better, but they want to know what they can do. And I think that's maybe a better use of that.
Yeah.
thing rather
Yeah.
than
You-
doing an advocate.
You
Giving them
had subheadings there a minute ago, Daniel, that had like education and parking and you had more, you can.
That's how you're driving.
Well, let's just keep them there, just so we don't forget about what kind of things we talked about.
Sometimes I put in italics or something. if
Yeah,
it's
put them in
temporary.
a different
Yeah, we don't need to be
font or
fancy right now, I just need to get the ideas. Okay,
If
so
there's too much, then Angus is going, whoa.
are you doing okay, Angus? You're smiling, so I'm gonna take that as good.
Yeah, he's making his.
But I have a feeling you're a smiley guy, so.
Yes, yeah.
Would you like some more water?
Okay, shall we go
Thanks, Steph.
back to the Bowen list and see what else we need to find a place for? We got transportation, we got beaches, we got stores, housing. Okay, so now housing, I think, is another one of these things, like, does the municipality, what control does it have over housing? I guess if it was building housing, it would have a lot of control. If it's doing building permits, it has some checkboxes. I don't know what would relate to accessibility. Or is it for like, somebody wants to build a house on Bowen and they want some guidance on best practices for accessible, private building.
Like, so if
private
it's,
housing.
we have to go back to the engagement responses to see, because if it's like we can't require accessibility standards beyond the BC building code.
Right.
Municipalities used to be able to do that and got very inventive in terms of what they require for the topics, and never clawed that. Especially, we can require the standards of the BC building code and that's it. But we do have like zoning control, so how much people can build and where they can build is all within municipal control.
So would we need to put that topic in that kind of later on out because it's not something that's under the municipality's control?
I guess it depends what are the actions, I guess, that are recommended, and then.
In that Port Coquitlam one, there's a couple of pages on housing.
Yeah.
Most are included in other accessibility plans I looked at in terms of, even in that age-friendly report, there's several mentions of that being a barrier and recommendations on what could, it's a little bit out of date.
Yeah.
But when you look at being out of date, has any of it been accomplished?
No.
Not really. And it goes back to the implementation thing. But it, in terms of aging in place, in terms of assisted living or snug cove house or, seniors living or disability, accessible housing, it should be mentioned in there as a separate category under built environment.
I'm just thinking, Fritz DeVries was the architect that we worked with when we built our house. And we kind of said to him, okay, we want to build a house we can grow old in. And we don't want to be trapped because we have stairs and one day we're in wheelchairs. So we had that conversation with him. And every once in a while, Fritz is on your committees. And there have been discussions, I think, about different models of housing and having, multiple, instead of having single family dwellings, having, shared dwellings of various sorts or co-housing or these sorts of models. So is that a place where there can be suggestions about, and don't forget about accessibility?
Yeah. I think there's definitely, you could easily have recommendations in here that are within the municipality's control. So
Also, for example, if you're doing a policy review on your affordable housing policy, in the Coquitlam accessibility plan, they recommend 30% of accessible housing be included in new builds or in the future.
So that could be something the municipality could take a position on.
And that's within the scope of this plan.
And we know actually that the BC government recently, or is in the process of changing the standards for housing needs report to have essentially a 20-year projection of housing need instead of a 5-year.
5-year.
So we'll have to be updating our plan shortly. Anyways,
Right.
It'd be a good timing to
Yeah,
prepare.
because it was supposed to be 5 years, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know where this fits, but just because it has popped into my head. So people with disabilities, there are different categories, and there may be people who have permanent ones. There may be people who, they had a surgery last week, and so it's a temporary issue because, they need a walker because they're recovering from their surgery. And then they come to the library and they check out, the walkers. So I think actually there are really smart equipment that people at the Toronto Rehabilitation Institute have invented, so that when you get sent home from hospital and you need a railing in your house, but you're not gonna, you have to get home from hospital, so you can't like do massive architectural renovations. So they built something that's a bit like a mechano set, where you can get a little box when you leave the hospital and you can construct your own railings by putting these things together, you know, that any 8-year-old could do, so that you can actually go down your own hallway or get out of your own bed. And then once you've recovered from your surgery or you've had rehab for your stroke, then you don't need those anymore, or you can do something that's more permanent. So we could, those kinds of kits, you know, could be added to the library repository. So maybe that fits under housing too, as some kind of
Accessible housing,
a repository of equipment for, you know, people that have immediate needs for, I'm not saying it well, but that kind of idea. So the example would be, you know, a railing kit for people who are released from rehab facilities to after stroke or surgeries or so forth.
That could be part of, it either is service delivery.
Yeah.
Like what services are, what municipal services are being made available, and that be a recommendation, not something.
Okay.
Library's current med shed service, because it's, in my mind, it's a service we provide, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
I see things like that that could fit under, you know, programs and
Okay,
services.
so since we are in there, so that's would also apply to, say, the sound system that groups could lend out.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
okay. And the library, I think, also has a role in some of the education. You know, if we wanted to run courses for people about
Yeah.
how to improve accessibility in their business, or how to improve accessibility in their meetings, or whatever it is, we could do
that kind of goes
it.
with information and communication too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a place where education is kind of logical, especially if you've got the equipment and people have to learn to use it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're getting somewhere here. So are we done? Let's go back to the Bowen list. I think we're home stretch. Transportation, yes. Beach access, yes. Stores, yes. Housing, yes. Meetings, yes. Library, community center, I think we've got that covered.
Yeah.
Both in built environment and service delivery, I think.
You had a list, Daniel, of buildings, and you had the municipal hall, and you had community center. Is that the same as the municipal hall? What is the
Yes.
official name of it? It's
Yeah,
the
will
one
there be
over
two-
there.
Will there be two different names?
Isn't
Or is it
there's a
just-
more
It'd
inclusive
be the
name,
community, or does it have a name?
Community hall?
yeah. Community,
I guess that's a whole
We
other
also
thing.
have the
What's it gonna be
community
called?
center.
Community
I don't know if the
center.
goal is there would be a name. We have a naming policy.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we have to refer to it properly. So
Anyway.
Something that
you can
combines
check
both.
When I've been using
Yeah.
community center, I mean that building,
It's
one
right.
building is the community
We
center.
avoid saying municipal hall because of
There's other
lot.
stuff in
people
there.
don't like donating to that piece, so.
Well, you can tell us what to call it, or if it needs an address or whatever.
But
And
that's,
there's-
yeah, that's how we view it, is the community center is the building. Within that, a section of that within is municipal hall. A section is the rec facilities, and a section is the multipurpose room.
Yes, large multipurpose room, which
Okay,
is
yes.
And there's the
good for
library.
performance.
And I do these, like, these are quite interesting because they're very different. Because the community center actions at this point are all about transition into it and, like, you know, construction, not quite construction of it, because it's like it's underway, but it's like the move into it and like review how it's working and like adapting. Whereas the library is like an existing space, known entity.
Are there other
Fire hall?
Fire hall,
Okay. Fire hall and public works and, I mean, that's sort of what the municipality owns is
Yeah, what other
the
space?
water treatment plant,
Yeah.
works.
Well, we had a little chat about that. I had Daniel and I about, you know, there are some buildings that the municipality is the public go to, but there are other parts of their physical plant where workers will be.
Right.
So it could be accessibility for workers, even if it isn't accessibility for the public.
And then the school is separate.
So
That can go under advocacy.
Well, they're doing, they must be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Don't take that on.
Level of needing to do something.
Well, why don't we put it something like coordinate them? Like, I just really hate it when people are doing the same work twice. You know, so if we
Yeah.
can collaborate and make, you know, if kids are doing something there and then they go to the library, you know, having a continuity
Some,
would make
yeah,
everybody's life easier.
some municipalities have just an accessibility plan for municipal employees, which includes like the maintenance people or the fire response, you know. So,
So is that in a section already someplace, or do we add it?
Like POCO has, and so does the provincial template, has employment as one of their things.
yeah,
But Port Coquitlam's is very specifically employment in the city, but by the city. So it's not any other employment other than,
it's just the municipal.
whereas I wonder if there was, at the community engagement, was there discussion about employment for people with disabilities in general? Was that a topic that came up?
Well, I think my recollection of the survey was there were some questions about demographics, age and sex and employment, if you were employed or unemployed or partially employed or underemployed. So people check those boxes. And then there were comments that people might make. So some people might have elaborated if they checked off that they were underemployed.
Right.
So it wasn't, I don't recall a lot of very specific things. Like, if you did this, then I could be fully employed. So I'm not sure they gave, I can't remember.
Do you want me just to show this survey quickly?
I think for persons with disabilities, that's a very common theme in terms of being underemployed or unemployed. And it's an issue, it's a big issue.
But I think we should put it someplace, but where do we put it? And what would we do? I liked Alex's point at the beginning of the meeting about people who are on committees having access to supports. So they may be volunteers, but volunteer activities, I think should be in some section about with employment.
Are you satisfied?
Well, one thing with Work BC that we found, they don't come to Bowen Island. We worked with them for several years before we found that out, but for this committee, it might be a different situation.
Sorry, I just
What
wanted
did
to
you
show
find?
this because there was a lack of clarity about what the survey comprised.
So-
So it was 3 questions.
So Alex and Jess, now Steph is showing the survey.
So nothing specifically about employment, but low income is there as a barrier.
Underemployed,
Okay.
there's underemployed.
Yeah, there's
there.
underemployed as a box.
As a barrier, okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do remember that, you know, the people where they check those boxes, they could check as many boxes as they wanted. And the underemployed often checked other boxes. So sometimes it was seniors, sometimes it was young people, sometimes it was, people who were in other minority groups where it was kind of it could have been some disability factor, but it was often combined with some other disadvantage.
Access to employment is.
So that, in that sense, disability is a piece, but there are other factors, so I don't know, is there is there a committee, is there a document about? It's the EDI, maybe it's the EDI document, maybe we should cross-reference to there.
I didn't have much on employment there other than awareness to municipal employees.
All right, so we should put it someplace but we don't know where.
And I just want to show for the community, there's a survey and then the community session was structured as challenges on Bowen.
Yeah.
And then successes. And then possible plan actions, possible.
Where does Port Coquitlam have it?
It's
Have
for
a
a
separate,
review of arguments, but.
They have a separate
separate category,
item
right? As
specifically about their
like
workers.
Tina was saying.
Yeah, they're a separate, sorry.
Well, maybe we, just for now, just so we don't lose,
Yeah, maybe.
we just put it as its own topic.
Yeah.
And we put a subsection under it, which is, municipal workers.
Can you send me that document that you just showed? I'm sorry, I was looking for it this afternoon from the engagement, not the survey, but from that engagement session. I was looking through all my files today and I couldn't find it, so maybe I need.
I will send it to everybody.
Thank you.
So if we just put a employment section in, and we can put,
Yeah.
municipal workers, municipal volunteers, advocacy. Maybe it kind of, follows with housing. Because I think that's another trick is, if you don't have money, then where do you live?
Don't have a job. Or.
So maybe we should kind of move it ahead of advocacy. Like under housing, maybe following housing.
Is it one of our main headings then
I think
for the plan?
it can, where did housing go again?
It's under built.
Built
It's
environment.
under built environment. Well, what do you guys think? Do you have an idea, Alex or Jessica, if we want to include a section on employment someplace? Does it stand alone? Does it go under something else?
I think it's important for municipal, workers and or committee members. I guess that's not really employment, that's more.
Well, I think we could have put volunteers under that.
I agree. So I do think it's important though, personally. I guess being of employment age, I know we have a lot of seniors that it might not be as relevant to, but I don't know. I think it's important.
It's important to Angus.
Well, I think the seniors are potentially an enormous source of volunteer
Yeah, no, absolutely.
contribution. So
absolutely.
they are an asset,
Absolutely.
the aging dividend, as some people say. Okay, so we've got transportation, built environment, service delivery.
Audio now unmuted.
So I'm just rereading back the headings on the document that Daniel has been editing. So transportation, built environment, service delivery and governance, information and communication, something about employment, something about advocacy. Those are the big headings. And just one last check, go back to the Bowen Island topics. I think we've got them all. Have we left anything out? Oh, we had that thing about future information gathering.
Right.
which,
We talk about that could go in the, like, if there's a monitoring evaluation.
yeah, that's right.
Section of the report, that's
Yeah.
where that would go in.
So
Yeah,
it's-
because that actually, if you look at the framework,
Yeah.
that's at the end.
Okay, so it's in, but not in these headings.
Number 7 of the template, monitoring and evaluation,
Okay,
go in there, right?
all right, so I'm looking at the clock and we have just a few more minutes, but I am thinking we can declare that structure done.
Yay!
So now, what, this is kind of a way we can go forward, is that now various committee members have done research on documents. They have ideas of their own from their own experience. So now we have to fill in under these topics. We have some subheadings, but we can add more as we go. But I'm thinking, how do we gather the bits and pieces that go under these headings? So one idea could be that we just make a table in a Word document, and the first column are the headings. And then maybe there's a second column with subheadings. And then there's a third column, which is blank. And everybody can write in whatever they want to on any one that they want to. And it could be because you did research on that topic already. It could be because you've got some personal ideas. And then we'll ask for that back in, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And then we'll try to, Daniel and I and anybody else who wants to can take that input and start filling in the sections. Is that something people could do, is work with a Word document? And, some people can do it on electronically, but if people want to print it and write it on
Daniel's
paper,
looking
then, that's.
What do you think, Daniel?
No, I was visualizing.
Right, how that, yeah, I'm trying to, yeah, I was kind of feeling
And
the
really
same.
yeah, I think that's good. And sort of what we're asking people when it's like, do these, this is track, but I guess asking people to write actions, like barriers, actions to fill in.
Yeah, we'd maybe be a little more specific, like,
Like if we gave somebody, so it says, built environment public spaces, beach access, blank space. Are people filling in like, this is what should happen in this category, right? Like the action could be X, or is it to say, okay, here are some subcategories to think of in this?
Okay, so
Yeah.
can we have big heading, like, what is beaches under? Built environment?
Yeah.
And subheading is beaches. And then maybe we have another column for what did we learn from previous documents? And then we have a fourth column, which is the future ideas.
Yeah, does that include the suggestions and things that came from is that where we put the public engagement stuff that we found? Do we then put it into those, so whatever people said in those, on the survey or in the public engagement session, who said, made a comment, you should have better ramps or whatever. We
Right.
pull those out and put them under the appropriate
Right.
headings of the
That's
idea?
that's a very good point.
well, wouldn't that be, because don't you have the categories, barriers and, you know what I mean, a lot,
Yeah, in that template,
yeah.
5 barriers identified, what we found, what we heard, action. And then the 3-year plan then says, okay, these are priorities. At least that's in that template.
You want to show it?
Yeah.
Right,
I sent it to you, it's in the same link.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
I
'cause-
had it open, it's just.
but other areas of the template that we could, that encompass what you're suggesting we look at, including Let's see. What we
I see what you
learned
mean.
and
I see what you mean.
barriers.
I see what you mean. So the report is gonna describe at the front end, you know, how did we collect information and how did we form the committee? And that's the past stuff.
Okay.
So really this section is about recommendations, right?
I was gonna say, when I looked at the POCO work
Yeah.
agreement one, it essentially collapsed those two sections, barriers identified, actions, and then did those sections by category. So it says, transportation, these are barriers we found.
Right.
These are actions taken. And so it does them both in the same place.
So
Yeah.
with that, so on our worksheet, we could have a worksheet for, like what Tina said, what did we find already in the surveys? And we could have a different worksheet for one of the recommendations, or we could have one worksheet with two columns. What came from our previous research and what are the recommendations? So do you have something to put on the screen, Daniel?
All right.
Thank you, Daniel, for just creating these things on the fly and pulling them up.
Well,
here.
he's been thinking about it, so but kind of letting us
I
tinker
think
with
what
it
we're
on the
looking
fly.
at is what do we include when
Okay.
we have these separate topics like transportation. Oh, I
Oh,
see.
this isn't even right.
Okay. We'll forgive you.
Okay, so
That's the part.
Alex and Jessica, Daniel is made an Excel, and his first column is a heading, which in this example is built environment. The second column is subheading, in this example is beaches. The third column is what did we learn? And that would be taken from the public engagement. The next column is what did we learn? And it would be taken from our review of those documents that we have talked a lot about. And then the next column is actions to take.
Chrissy SCU.
Beautiful, thank you.
Can I be a weird wordsmithy?
Yes.
person? Can we say, from the public engagement, what did we hear? And then what did we learn from the document? Because that's sort of, you go and learn from what exists and what we heard from people's voices.
So if we go back to the template.
Yeah.
Barriers identified, what we found, internal review. And B is what we heard, committee feedback. And then C is action taken.
Right.
So, if we follow the,
Yeah,
just under barriers,
so what we
it's,
heard.
it's exactly what we're entitling the categories here or set.
Okay, so I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
end, but let's just have capture what Robin is saying. So do you want to add another column or do you want to relabel a column or both? Tell Daniel what to take.
Oh, well, I'm just saying, all of this is already on the template, right, Daniel?
Yeah, the barriers identified.
Barriers identified,
We have to kind of fill it in now. So
yeah,
if we use this as a worksheet,
right. So
do we need another column?
he's put the headings.
Yeah.
Right there.
So we're taking
we
those
heard.
three things that you just
And
said from the three parts, but we're adding headings and subheadings for those barriers. Does that capture it?
And so
Sort of
essentially then it's.
Putting the barriers into categories.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we're not just gonna list the barriers, but we'll say, okay, let's categorize the barriers like we're gonna categorize the
Or
actions.
actions.
The one, I put this blank column in here
yeah,
because I was trying to leave space for, what the committee members have brought in terms of so I'm not quite sure what to title that. But the idea is what we heard is us saying, okay, in the community engagement, we heard these things. What we found when we looked through the documents and then put something of
Why don't we call it
Well-
lived experience?
sure. Is there something there, Robin, that would work?
I'm looking at the template again,
Yeah,
because I kind of feel like we should use
Yeah,
this as
absolutely.
much as possible. Let's see. Who was consulted, how consultation, key discussion themes, no. Really isn't anything,
So I think the kind of content you're expecting to say, you
Yeah,
know,
what-
Alex could say, add in that column, things that he wants to include that come from his own
Yeah.
experience. Or Angus
From lived
might like to do that.
yeah, like I don't
or-
want committee members feel they're just beholden to, you know, the survey, the session, but say, this is, yeah, my lived experiences when you're on the committee, bring that
that's
experience.
kind of why we're here.
I think that's good. So-
Under the,
So Ken, are we good for today, kind of with this idea?
Yeah.
And we'll let Daniel kind of think about it and maybe tune it up a bit.
And
then
send that
is it easier in an Excel or in a Word?
I think a Word or Excel, either way.
It doesn't matter.
Well, maybe
What do you
if
think,
you, maybe if you make it in an Excel and we can ask the committee members who aren't here
Sure.
if they, what they prefer, and, because it's easy to take it from an
do
Excel
you
and
think,
make it
Tina?
into a Word.
Yeah,
And we don't really,
go that way.
we don't really care as long as we have content. If somebody really wants it in a Word, it's
Yeah.
easy to go from the Excel.
Right.
Okay, hooray.
Great.
And then we'll do this homework and then we'll kind of put it into filling in the document. And then I think that gives us a starting point to be continued where we can talk about other things like, you know, references. So for example, I sent around a thing about how to run an accessible meeting.
Yeah.
For hearing loss.
right.
So it's like, under the meeting section, you know, we can have references to these documents for guidelines and standards and whatever that'll live in the appendix. And then maybe if we get really clever at this can turn into the report card.
Right, well, that would cover off the monitoring
The
and
monitoring.
evaluation.
So I think this is
Coming along.
working.
Yeah, it'd be great. I don't know if we need to talk about this now, but there's certainly, in the world of libraries, we're all talking about whether you've had accessibility audits. So there are a number of organizations that will come and do that for your building or, you know, service and say, you're missing this, or you're missing that, or you need to do this, or whatever. So maybe that's something that in
It could be
the
in
plan
those,
is to do accessibility audits in all the municipal.
And auditing
Buildings
is
or-
what
Yeah.
these
And that will
guidelines.
inform later plans or get added to the plan to say what else do we
And
need
these-
to look at.
These guidelines and standards provide a target. Yeah. All right, well, that was a wonderful session. I can't wait till the next time.
critique already.
And so I think we should go home. But feel free if you know, something comes into your mind, to share.
Are we sort of, it seems to be kind of once a month-ish, is that a comfortable amount of like time, or do we want to do things faster or meet sooner, or do we, I know it's December, nothing ever happens.
I think if we just do this,
January.
Or January.
I think-
Sometime in January.
if we just do this homework in
Yeah,
December.
Yeah.
And if we can pick a date
Sure.
sometime
In the new year.
December, and then people just send it in.
Okay.
And, you know, I do my Christmas with my family in the summer, not in the winter. So I'm happy to mess around with this, and then we can come back in January.
Yeah.
And then I think Daniel said that, you know, there's a certain lead time before it can go to council. So if we were really inspired in January, maybe, you know, it would be close to submit it in February. Because I'm sure we would like to get this thing done, right?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Is anybody getting nervous about where the heck is that?
And nobody's getting nervous.
So we can,
Everyone's very happy,
There's no
understanding of the
super stress,
process. There's no
pressure.
stress.
It's like, you know.
That's the last
nice
thing,
thing that
the
fit-
next
Once it's done, then you can get on to the, like, then you can do the
Yeah.
things in it, but.
right,
Well, they say, the devil's in the details, but I just feel like having this plan now, we know what's ahead of us.
Yeah.
And it feels more
it's
tangible.
supposed to be short-term anyway, a plan.
Yeah.
1 or 2 years,
Well, the other thing that,
so
It's not like we're
building
planning for the next 20 years and,
20
oh no,
years.
we've missed something.
yeah,
We'll definitely be going at it again.
the other thing I asked Daniel was, we can make a big list of stuff, but is it our job or not to say, out of this big list of stuff, these are our
Priorities.
top 3, and go through some kind of a ranking exercise? Or is that not
that
our
could be
job?
part of our recommendations.
I think
Oh, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we also had that, like with the way the strategic plan was set up about, saying who is responsible for that.
Yeah.
so I think
We've done the
we'll just do our
She says
homework
that
for
quiet.
now, and we'll kind of get into these things in January.
Okay. Did you want to do a, Wednesday, January 10th at 4 o'clock?
We'll have to ask people, but,
Yeah, it's,
so.
Sorry, did you have a date you were proposing?
Wednesday, January 10th at 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
What's happening?
It's just really hard for me to leave the library when we're open. Like, it's really hard for me to leave staff to close up and do the rest of the day, or if somebody's sick, or if there's a program going on. So it's hard for me to know in advance. I know we're starting something that will be happening Wednesdays at that time, and I think that's our first session, and the person who's running it's probably gonna need.
All right. Okay, so that's
Is
not a
there a
good time.
different time or day?
Yeah, I don't know. I think if Wednesdays at 4 works, I'll work around it. It might be that I can't come till 4:30, or it might be that sometimes I won't
Zoom in or.
be able to make it. That's.
Unmute audio.
I would personally prefer a day that's not Wednesday, but if Wednesday's
Okay.
the day that works for everyone
No.
else, then we can't do Wednesday.
We can change the date. I'm not even sure. You guys aren't my only group. Can't
Mhm.
remember how we landed on Wednesday, but
why
I don't
don't
know
you,
either.
why don't you propose some dates and
Send a poll.
send-
Monday
Okay.
afternoon and Fridays are better for Angus.
Yeah, Mondays are good for me as
Or-
well,
Or
usually.
4 o'clock on.
I think we have a lot of
On
people
Tuesday,
missing, so
Yeah.
even if we
Yeah.
agreed,
Hear from
they would
everybody
have
else.
conflicts potentially.
It's work as long as it's not the council. The
Right.
council's the second.
Mondays
Fourth
usually.
Monday, but the third Monday is free here.
council's not in the calendar yet. Do you remember?
Oh, because they just set.
Why
I
don't,
think it's second and fourth.
why don't you find one?
Yeah.
No, we should stay here for 4 hours. Yeah, this
We
is the
could just
key.
wait until January and then we'll still be here. Okay,
We'll decide on a date just because we'll.
so everybody will have this homework document to please finish by December. We could
Yeah.
say like December 18th.
Did we say it's a live document?
Everybody's gonna do their own.
Circulate, I can't, yeah.
Everybody's
Probably will
gonna do
circulate
their
on Friday.
And we're also looking
I
at
can't- oh, okay.
other plan documents like the,
Yes, and people have homework to do, going over some of those other plans. And doing these, filling in whatever you like on these forms to input into the content. So that's do it yourself, but if you send it in by, shall we just say December 18th?
Okay.
And then we'll do magic with it and then reconsider it in January at some date that Steph will
Magically.
magically.
A lot of
come
magic
up
in
with.
this group.
Yeah, totally. And we may have something else to look at for that other thing that's being referred to us. So it won't be boring, but I think January is good enough. Is the office close in the holidays?
The office closes and I'm gonna be a little bit out of commission in the next couple of weeks, so January's perfect.
Okay. All right, so that is what we can say about next meeting. And we can adjourn. Do we have to make an official,
By unanimous consent.
okay,
Audio
Thanks,
number.
Alex and Jessica.
Thank
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you.